So this may be my favorite part of the course, and this is where we get to talk about how some of the things have changed over the past year and a half or 2 years in Google to really evolve how it looks at rank and how we look at search. There's new things today. There's new things in the mix, and search is evolving and it's evolving at a rate that we really need to understand that to stay current. And I really like this because it really makes us actually sit down and think about Google and understand what it's using to understand our web content and what it's using to understand why this web page ranks more than this web page. So it leads us to the question of how does Google actually measure rank, right? And Google measures rank based off of a huge number of factors. Some say it's over 100, some say it's over 200. And understanding these is really going to help ensure that your web pages rank well and get targeted traffic, which is ultimately like the real reason we're doing this. Now, targeted traffic obviously means better traffic. Better traffic is more money, right? The whole point of doing this is to actually earn something, right? You have a goal in mind or you wouldn't be listening to this. Now, the beauty of this is that the internet is ultimately a level playing field. Now, I've ranked out billion-dollar companies, right? Just by building simple web pages and applying the techniques that we'll talk about here. You could do it, anybody can do it. It's just a matter of persistence, right? It's a matter of work ethic. And the reality is that the big sites don't necessarily do this near as well as you're going to actually be able to do it once you finish this course. Anybody can create a website. Anybody can rank for any term if they're actually willing to work at it. So what we're going to talk about now is the simple stuff. And I want to talk about why I say the simple stuff becomes more important today. And there's two things on here, and both of which you're probably going to look at and say, great. You know, how many times have I heard about on-page? How many times have I heard about keyword analysis? And I stress this, and this is a big chunk of the course for a very important reason. The key thing that I see every single webmaster screwing up as I go through and I do site audits and I go in and I consult for people is getting these things wrong. And this isn't going to be harping on where to place your keywords and that kind of stuff. It's going to be talking about fundamentally the approach that you need to take from day one to make sure that when you get to link building, you're doing that in a manner that's actually going to end up giving you a good positive result. And if you don't do this step, if you skip this module, none of the rest matters. So it's really important that you pay attention here. So here's what I'm going to do with on-page ranking factors. This is it right here. This is all I'm going to do about covering these. There's 8 of them that I've listed out here, and I've listed them out relatively speaking in order of importance. Title tag, body text, H1 tag, domain names, page names, H2 through 6, meta usage, right? These are all the things that we learned in SEO 101 about how to actually optimize a website. So if it's late 99, right, early 2000, you could rank a website just on this stuff alone. Go find a keyword, put it all in the right places, and it's going to rank. And it does contribute a small portion, say maybe 20 to 30% of actually rank. Depending on how strong your website is. And I want to talk more about that later because this is why I say on-page really does matter. Now, if you look at Wikipedia, Wikipedia is like the blueprint for this. And if you look at it, how they put it in their keywords, their titles, their text, their URLs, their H1s, all of that stuff, Wikipedia does this really well. It also cross-links within its own site really well. So if they have a website that talks about blue cheese, it may cross-link to the Swiss cheese page, and they're using the proper anchor text to do it. A lot of websites don't do that. They don't interlink well. Wikipedia is a really great model for a website that interlinks well, and it does on-page really well. And guess what? Wikipedia ranks really well for a lot of terms. So if you're thinking about how do I do on-page, or I need to set up a model to teach someone else how to do on-page, I almost always use Wikipedia as my reference. Okay, so we talked about on-page, right? On-page is a small portion of rank. So what does drive rank? And this is where we're going to get a little bit more theoretical, right? Now, the way I look at it is the internet is essentially a popularity contest, and you're trying to win, right? So if you're hiding, right, you're out on this mountain, nobody ever notices you, but if you go out, right, you put yourself out there, you hang out with people, you socialize, you participate, you get rewarded, right? So this popularity contest is something that you need to actually go out there, put yourself out there in order to win. And the reality of Google is that it can't read your page, right? So it's not going to go to a page and it's not going to say, hey, Bill, I just read your page. It's about hiking gear. It's a great page. I really like it. And I just read this other page over here, and that's about hiking gear, but their content wasn't near as good. So how does Google really know, right? How is Google going to know that my page is better than Bill's page about hiking gear? So it goes through, fundamentally, this is the first way that we look at rank, is it goes through and actually looks at other people's websites and how they refer back to your website. And these are off-page factors, right? So the simplest way to look at it is that we have two sites, right? They're both on hiking gear, Site A and Site B. Site A has 2 links that point to it. They both talk about hiking gear. Site B has 10 links to it, and they all talk about hiking gear. Fundamentally speaking, with all things being equal, which most times they're not, all things being equal, Site B, according to Google, is going to be the better website for hiking gear because 10 people said it's the best website for hiking gear versus 2 people on Site A that said it's the best website for hiking gear. The way that I've also given this analogy before when I've done talks is that let's just say you're at a bar, right? There's 2 people in a bar. One guy walks into the bar, sits down at a stool. You have no idea who this guy is, right? You don't know if he's credible. You don't know if he's cool. You don't know if you should talk to him. You're not going to go up to that guy and say anything to him, right? Another guy walks into a bar. Angelina Jolie is on his shoulder, right? They walk in together. They're super happy, super excited. You're going to actually associate with him and say he's a better guy just because he's associated with somebody that's super cool, right? So that super cool association already gives you the impression that he's a cool guy, even though you don't know that guy, right? You're taking some input from around you, taking input from your surroundings to make a determination of what your actual impression of that person is. And we do this all the time, but we don't necessarily think about it as it pertains to the web. This is basically exactly what Google's algorithm does, right? Google's algorithm is a computer program, and it says, here's a model, right? And in this model, take in these 200 signals, right? And when I have this assortment of 200 signals, this is a particular situation where these signals say, this is something good. This assortment says, this is something not as good, right? So in reality, the point of SEO is to trigger the better signals to Google to make their algorithm think that you're better than somebody else. So the beauty of it, and this is where I always really love to think about it this way, is that Google's just a program, and you can make a program do something, right? You can force a program into a particular box, right? So that's what we're going to do. That's the whole point of this course. Now, before we get too far, we have to talk about keywords, and this is where the fundamentals really are the most important thing for me. And search works based off of keywords, right? When somebody goes to Google, they're typing in a keyword or a phrase, and that content is ranked against that keyword or against that key phrase. So if you want to actually show up when somebody's looking for that thing or those things, whatever they may be, you have to write content and you have to structure content around those keywords. So any successful SEO strategy is structured around keywords. And I don't care who you talk to, I don't care where you've been in this world, and I don't care what happens with Google, there's always going to be keyword-specific searches that happen. Now, we talked about website level rank, and we talked about the importance of links, and I'll go into a lot more detail on that. Now, if website rank depends on links, then keyword-specific rank depends on keyword-specific links. Now, I talked about anchor text, and I talk about how exact match anchor text isn't necessarily the way going forward, which was absolutely fine. Now, it may be now that keyword-specific rank then depends upon semantically related keyword-specific links, right? That's the subtle difference between last year or 2 years ago and this year. Now, the other difference is that it's just not enough to have links anymore. Google's looking for a lot of different factors about your links, right? How many links do you have? How old are they? How topical are they? How much authority do they have? What kind of reputation do they have? How quickly have you gained them? Are they within your community? And what kind of anchor text, which is what we've already talked about. So you'll hear me talk about things like authority and reputation and growth rates, right? And popularity. These are kind of ambiguous at times, right? And I could give you a definition for these, but I'm actually going to define them more with some examples as we go forward. So my most simplistic view of rank, right? This is where I get to boil it down to a point where I can take this line, I can digest it, and I can think about it as I'm trying to execute, right? So the site with the most and the best links pointing to it using the proper keyword anchor text will stand the best chance of ranking for that keyword. We know that ranking is 20 to 30% on page. That's simple stuff. Do it, get it right. You're already at advantage. And 70 to 80% off page. Your links determine your ranking for your keywords, and this is where most people fail, right? They do not have the right links. And that's going to be a big chunk of this course, is focusing on where do we get the right links. Now, before we get our links, I want to talk about our keywords again. Now, our keywords are so important that it does make sense to spend a lot of time on them. And I've done this myself, where I spend, I'd say, 80% of the time of site development focusing on keywords and structure before I build one page, before I get one piece of content written, before I do any marketing at all. And this is really critical. Building this list out is really important. Now, I do this a lot of different ways. A lot of people will use just Google's keyword data, which is fine. I use that data all the time. But also think about what your customers use, right? When somebody's going out to order hiking gear, are they calling it camping gear? Are they calling it, hill climbing gear? What's the words that they use? Because a lot of times when you're looking at a competitor, they may not have the right words. So don't assume that what somebody else is using is right. Go out and talk to customers. If you can use SurveyMonkey, use social, poll customers, use as many outlets as you can to get direct answers from people. The second one is one that a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to do or may not necessarily have the funds to do, but it's probably the most effective way to save yourself a lot of money and a lot of hassle going forward with SEO, and that's actually taking keywords, taking a list of keywords. Say I had hiking gear, camping gear, hiking boots, whatever, a whole bunch of terms that I wasn't sure which ones from this list should I optimize for. I have a couple which are alike. Like I have, aluminum ladders and aluminum climbing gear. I don't know what they are, but they're synonyms, right? I'm not going to use both of them. I'm going to dump all of those keywords into paid search. I'm going to send them all to a very, very simple landing page, and I'm going to look at my conversion rate. And the reality of it is that since we're talking about money, we have to be able to boil these things down to very, very distinct pools, right? You're going to have keywords which are going to drive a lot of traffic, but they won't sell you anything, right? So you can't necessarily just use traffic volume as your endpoint. So if I have a keyword that says it's going to generate 5,000 searches a month and I'm going to garner, 20% of that from a number one ranking, then I need to make sure that that traffic that I bring in is going to make me just as much money as this other keyword, which is only going to generate me 1,000 visits a month, and I can gather 20% of them. Sometimes the lower search volume terms convert better, and it's important to be able to use things like paid search to be able to buy this knowledge, right? Spend a couple dollars, do it in Facebook. There's paid search in Facebook, which is quite a bit cheaper actually, or do it in Google. Buy the traffic, send them to your website, see how they convert, send them to a super, super simple page, and if they convert better with one term or the other, you've prioritized your efforts for SEO. If you have an established website, pull your own data, right? If you have Google Analytics, how are people using any internal search functions that you have? If you have Omniture, how are people using your internal search functions there? Any good analytics package is going to allow you to get some knowledge about how people are using internal search on your own website. So a lot of times people will use different semantic versions of terms which are already ranking for. Go out and build out for those, or they'll search for things which you don't sell. Go out and sell that then. And then, of course, keywords our competition's using. These are really easy ones, right? Go through, use a tool like SpyFu, use a tool like Rank Recon, which we'll talk about later. These are all great tools to go out and do competitive analysis, but no one version of how we select our keywords is the actual end-all be-all, right? These are all just pieces to build the entire puzzle. The important thing is that you're looking at keywords for a legitimate reason, right? I have this keyword because it generates traffic. I have this keyword because it generates leads. It generates revenue, or it has some strategic value such as branding, which is going to garner me some larger scale endpoint which I'm working towards. Now, of course, this all comes down to proposing new keywords, right? Either if you're building your list first and foremost, or if you're expanding on existing lists, you base your keyword research on all of these factors above, but then also checking against Google's own search data. Find missed opportunities on your own website and then build around them. So getting this right is super important. It's one of those kind of things that once you do get it right, you can really, really see the benefits. Now, keyword targeting also brings really, really good traffic potential, and it's a really specific thing for me to understand the semantics of how people search. One of the things that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is the difference in semantics of a search, right? You'll think about, I'm selling keyword tool. So what do I optimize for? I want to optimize for keyword tool. What's the competition for keyword tool, and what's the volume of traffic I drive there versus keyword tools, right? So if you're an affiliate and you're marketing multiple keyword tools, do you build a page that compares all your keyword tools, or do you build a page about individual keyword tools? Say, here's Bill Smith's keyword tool. Here's Joe Schmo's keyword tool. Here's Sally's keyword tool, right? I'll build multiple pages with the intent of trying to rank for the word keyword tool because that's going to pull one set of traffic, and then I'll also build a page that collates all of the keyword tools because that'll build a totally unique set of traffic. And the reality is that those terms have different intent. Right? So if somebody looks for keyword tools, they're in a shopping mode, they're not sure what they want, you want to show them a number of different options. If somebody looks for a keyword tool, they're looking for a specific thing. Remember, it's singular. So what you show them and where they are in the purchase funnel is very, very different. So targeting a keyword improperly or targeting a keyword at the wrong phase of the buying cycle is actually just going to get you a lot of bounce traffic. So think about the intent of the term. Why is somebody typing that term into the search box, and what do they expect to get out of it? Now, if you're targeting based off of what you think is going to happen, a lot of times you're going to be losing traffic. Now, the takeaway is, like I said from the last page, never set up a page without a keyword target. Never build a page with no purpose. Never not have a page goal associated with anything that you create. I've seen time and time and time again when I've done audits on websites, there's a site that has 300 pages associated with it, and I can probably handpick a dozen of those pages that were built with a specific purpose. That somebody actually sat down and said, I built this page to rank for the word keyword tools because I want customers to compare lots of keyword tools and then select one of them and purchase it. If you're not going through that simple process in your head, here's the page I created, here's the words I expect them to look for when they find it, here's what I expect them to do when they find it, and then here's my end goal. Here's what they did, and here's how I'm going to measure it. If you're not doing those simple steps when you're building a page, then there's no reason for you to be building that page. You're wasting your own time, you're wasting other people's time, and most chances you're wasting money. Now, the words that you choose matter a lot. Now, I talked a little bit about intent, and this is just one of the examples of understanding the different phrases and the different terminology that our customers could use. Now, let's just say you're selling curtains, right? Curtains has tons of searches and tons of competition, and drapes, not nearly, right? A tenth of the searches, tenth of the competition. If you just flat out assume that everybody looks for drapes, then you're missing your curtain market, or vice versa. If you just assume everybody calls them curtains, then you're missing the drapes market. So plan your pages around language customers use. So how do we optimize for the keywords? There's two aspects for it, and I touched on page, but the other thing that I want to talk about is placement, right? Moving keywords that are higher up in the funnel closer to the home page. More competitive terms should be at the top of your site, less competitive terms should be at the bottom of your site. So your home page, if you're building a website about curtains, your home page should be about curtains. You should expect that page to rank for curtains. That should be your most competitive phrase because you expect to drive the most traffic to it, but that should also be the least buy-oriented term in your funnel. One click down may be blue curtains. One click below that may be blue curtains, 80 inches by 20 inches, right? One click below that might be, blue curtains, this brand name, this size, this price, right? As you drop down the funnel, you get more long tail, easier to rank, but more tiered towards the buying customer. As you're at the top of the funnel, really broad, lots of traffic. They're shopping, so you need to give them shopping content. They need to be shopping keywords. So it's most competitive to least competitive. Now, from an SEO perspective, this also makes sense. When you put your most competitive terms at the top of your website, closer to the click, closer to Google, what you're saying to Google is that this is the first page on my website. This is the most important keyword on my website, which is why most times top of funnel terms tend to be the most competitive and also generate the most traffic. So if my website's about curtains, what I'm telling Google is that this is a curtains website. I want it to be about curtains. Put me in the pool of people who are making websites about curtains and give the most link juice to this page. When it gets to this page, distribute it down, right? Simplistically speaking, I always build architectures from the top down, most competitive to least competitive, and I always think about my architecture and my keywords before I do anything else. So where do we use keywords? I talked about this: titles, descriptions, keywords, headings, copy, on the site in the URL, and then in links pointing to this page. Now, breaking it down specifically, this isn't necessarily just about the search engine. It's not necessarily just about on-page SEO. It's about how people see your website. So we talk about it in terms of keywords, but I also want to talk about it as it relates to the actual terms and how customers experience that. SEO is not just technical, right? It's about how customers see your page titles, how they experience that, how they read your description. If I type the word in rank recon in the search box, it bolds that word again in my actual descriptions. So regardless of the fact that Google isn't necessarily going to care what my description says, my description plays a role in whether or not that page gets clicked on versus another person. And same thing with the page titles and the page URLs. These are all going to be presented in customer-facing situations. So be careful about what you choose, and remember that every single decision that you make when building out a website comes into play when the customer has to decide between the number 1 spot or the number 3 spot or the number 5 spot in Google, and how they actually perceive your site when they land on it. So all of this stuff, as it comes off, I want you to think about how your sites are structured today. How much time have you put into your keyword analysis? How much time have you thought about what the customer journey is like, going from that click in Google to what you're expecting them to do? How are they getting from A to B? What do they experience? What decisions do they have to make? And is it easy for them? Does it align with the search that they've just done? All of these things I found have resulted in massive increases in conversion for me. And on top of that, doing the time to spend doing that keyword analysis and looking at proper keyword targeting has garnered me so much more traffic than actually going out and building thousands of pages, right? I've built 50-page websites, which have given me probably 100 times more traffic than 1,000-page websites, because I've spent the time, I've created the right content, targeted the right customer and the right keywords. And doing this is going to give you huge benefits as you go through the rest of the course. So I don't want you to skip this step, and I want you to take a little bit of time to think about what you've done up to this point with sites that you've built.